Okay, good morning, guys. So today we're going to focus our training on incident management. Um, it's a super important topic for everyone to be well versed in to keep our VIPs safe. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me figure this out first. Hold on. Okay. This is so much different than Teams, so now I'm trying to figure it out. Oh, here we go. Share. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yes,
Perfect.
ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you. I wish I can move this. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. Okay. Incident management training. Okay, so some key terms. What is an incident? Does anyone want to tell me what they think an incident is?
A client falling and getting hurt.
Yes, that is a type of incident. You are right. An incident is an event with potential to adversely impact an individual's health, safety, or rights. Incident management is the response to an event intended to ensure the adequate, appropriate, and effective protection of the health, safety, and rights of the individual. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go. So recognizing an incident, providers must take immediate action to protect the health, safety, rights, and well-being of the individuals we serve. Any incidents that occur must be reported within 24 hours. So that includes being reported on our end to on EIM, which is on HCSIS, but that also includes you guys reporting it within 24 hours. It's super important to keep that time frame. Honestly, you should just report an incident immediately after you feel it occurs. You can let me know that you think an incident occurred. You can let Kerlin know, Brandon know, Mike know, anyone in leadership. You need to let somebody know that even if you're not sure an incident occurred, you need to let someone know that you feel like something may have happened. Once we are notified of a potential incident, our next steps may include calling 911, quickly removing any risk to the individual if possible, contacting the individual's caretakers, if applicable, contacting the individual supports coordinator, contacting the VIP care coordinators or Mike. You can also talk to Mike too, and completing an incident report. Does anyone have any questions or comments about this part or this slide?
No.
Okay, does everyone understand this slide? Not every incident that occurs, you have to call 911. There are times where it's just contacting, maybe the family, or the guardian, contacting the supports coordinator, letting us know and completing an incident report. Once you complete an incident report, then we will handle on our end doing any reporting on EIM. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay. Continued. Other steps may include notifying the following services if appropriate. Adult Protective Services, and this is a good phone number to keep handy. Child Protective Services, which isn't used as often, at least in our line of field. I'm sure in the children's department, that would be something that would be a number that would be more used. And the Department of Aging. We did have a VIP at one point in time that had a small child, and we felt an incident may have occurred, so we had to call CPS. So that is an instance where you would need to have CPS's phone number. But the most important one on here for our line of work in the adult department is the Adult Protective Services number. Has anyone ever had to call APS before and wants to talk about their experience?
I can.
Sure. Go ahead, Brittany.
I mean, they're very friendly. If anybody ever gets nervous about that, they are very good with understanding if somebody hasn't done it before. Um, so I just had to report an instance of sexual harassment and exploitation for one of my clients. And so, like I said, it was a pretty easy process. You just call them, you let them know, and then call local law enforcement for wherever the incident took place, like whatever county you were in, and then had to fill out just like a little form to send to an APS email that they provided me. So it was a very simple process. Followed up later on because this is a particular case where APS knows the people involved pretty well. Um, so just do like a follow up process. So yeah, it's not scary and it's a good thing to do if you need to. So
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you for letting us, telling us that story. Um, yeah, I mean, they walk you through it. The last time that I had to call APS, I did it with a staff at the time who was very new and has never done it before. And they really walk you through the process and make sure you feel comfortable and you just really tell them what happened. And sometimes they'll even advise you what to do next. Definitely a really good phone number to keep. Law enforcement will need to be contacted if the incident involves sexual abuse, missing person, serious bodily harm, if a crime was committed, or of death. Any questions so far? Okay. We're going to get into more detail of each one of these, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to stop sharing this and reshare something else. I have too many tabs open. You guys see this?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services Bulletin regarding incidents and incident management. We can send this out to everyone on Teams to make sure that you have it to refer to. It's a really important document, and it's very helpful. I'm going to skip through a little bit though. I think that might have been right. Yeah, this was right. Okay. I wonder if I could scroll in a little more. Okay. So most of this we already kind of talked about, but I just want you to see that it's in this bulletin, the information, and it's a little more in depth and in detail. So this is important. Response upon discovery, recognition of an incident. The provider and SCO. SCO means your supports coordination agency must take immediate action to protect the health, safety, rights, and well-being of the individual following the initial knowledge or notice of an incident, alleged incident, or suspected incident. So we already kind of talked about this, that the actions include dialing number 911, reducing or removing risk. So we kind of already talked a little bit about this, so I'm going to like skim it. The provider must ensure separation of the victim from the alleged targets. The separation shall continue until the investigation is complete. When the alleged target is an employee, staff, volunteer, contractor, consultant, yada yada, or intern of the provider of the SCO, the target shall not be permitted to work directly with the victim or any other individual during the investigation process until the determination is completed and corrective actions specific to the targets are implemented. Basically, what this means is if you are deemed as the target in an incident that occurs when we put it in in HCSIS and EIM, we may have to complete an investigation. And there may be a chance that you are there, not that there may be, there will be, you will have to be taken off of the case until further notice. It's considered a suspension. But that really just means for the health, safety, and protection of the individual, since there's an incident that allegedly happened, you're not able to work with that person until we complete our investigation. Let's see. When the alleged target is not an employee, staff, the provider of SCO should work with the appropriate county. So this is if it's a family member, unpaid caregiver, community member. What they usually do is try to separate them. So we had a case in the past where a report was made against a VIP's mother, and the VIP and the mother lived in the same home. And because of because of the reports that were made, that individual had to go and stay in a group home for a while. They had to be removed out of the home until the investigation was completed. We talked about this a little bit already. Adult Protective Services, who needs to be contacted. Notifying law enforcement, we talked about a little bit more. This is just more into depth. So we're going to go down to responsibility for reporting and investigating. Providers, the provider must take immediate action to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the individual following the initial knowledge or notice of an incident, alleged incident, or suspected incident. Now, this on here, right here, providers include those under the agency with choice model must report within 24 to 72 hours of discovery. We are going to say 24. This is not, it needs to be reported in 24 hours. If it's not, and we report things that later than that, we do get questioned as to why we waited. And it causes a lot more problems than not. So let's report things in 24 hours or less. Any questions so far? I don't want to be going too fast. Or if anyone
I
has,
think that 24-hour is for us to enter a report into EIM. If you guys discover an incident is happening, it's your responsibility to report it immediately. You do not have 24 hours to report it to us. You have to report it to us immediately. If there was a medical problem or something like that that occurred, we have to seek medical attention for the VIP. We have to make sure that their health and safety are protected. So that takes immediate action from you. So don't hesitate to report. The 24-hour criteria is for us to enter a report into the EIM system. So that's all that means. So we will enter a report within 24 hours, but it's your responsibility as mandated reporters to make that report to us immediately upon discovery. Does anyone have any questions about that?
No.
Thank you.
yeah. All right. Trying to scroll. I don't need to. You guys can also, you should read specifically these 3 sections on your own and make sure that you fully understand them. This is really, again, this is really important. And I do want to say, if this is something that you are unsure of or information that you are not well versed in, it could, if something were to happen and you didn't take the necessary steps and precautions that you needed to take that are outlined in this, you can even lose your job. So this is extremely important information to know. I just don't want to sit here and read it word for word, especially if I already went through it. So when a provider becomes aware of an incident that is outside of the scope of its responsibility to report, the provider must ensure prompt action is taken, contact the SC. So there are times where we report an incident, and there are times where the supports coordination reports an incident on EIM. That's why it's really important to not only let us know immediately that something happened, but to also let the supports coordinator know that something happened. I recommend to not only call the sports coordinator, but also to have an email letting the sports coordinator know. It's good to have that paper trail. It's good to have that email that you can refer back to, especially if something needs to be investigated. Um,
Great. So if that ever happens, do you want, we have to send something out to SC. Should we tag anybody else on the email?
yes, that's a good question. Thank you, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You can CC me on it. You can CC Mike on it. Sometimes so I'm the one that myself and Elena also handles incidents. But between her, myself, and Mike, I would just CCS on it.
Thank you.
Mhm. You can CC Curlin and Brandon too, but it's not necessary. If there's something that happened and you only put them on it, they would forward it to us anyway. As long as somebody else is put on there that from leadership that knows. Um, let's see. I'm not going to go crazy into this. Okay. Reportable incidents. Let me see. I think this is the part that I want. Yes, it is. Okay. Reporting guidelines. Specific incidents, alleged incidents, and suspected incidents are to be reported and documented in the department's information management system. A provider, SCO, or county ID shall not contact an informal review. We don't need to worry about that right here. In addition to verbal reports, alleged and suspected incidents may be deleted. You don't need to worry about that. I'm trying to see. This is mostly about putting it in the system. You don't need to worry about that. Myself and Elena worry about that. All incident categories, with the exception of medication errors and physical restraints, shall be reported to the department within 24 hours. Incidents include suspicions, allegations, and actual occurrences of harm. Okay, I want to go through each, which is, yes, this is what I want. I want to go through each category in more detail. So the first one here is abuse. Abuse is a deliberate or careless act by a person, including another individual receiving services, which may result in mental or physical harm. The first step here under abuse is misapplication or unauthorized use of restraint. The use of a restraint that does not follow ODP's regulatory requirements, the misapplication of an approved restraint technique, or the use of a restraint that results in an injury is something that needs to be reported. So this is why it's very important too that everyone on our team is trained and handled with care. So in the past we did SCM, which is still, a good system to use, but handle with care. And I think Mark, I think you're on. You can maybe talk a little bit more about handle with care for people who haven't been trained in it already. But it's I think from my understanding, it's easier moves and it's more gentle on the individual. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't do anything prone, meaning, taking somebody down to the floor. There's also, it does have a lot of the same restraints in SCM, but there's also a big de-escalation portion of it. Just kind of helps assist the things that we already do with antecedents and stuff like that for ABA interventions. It's a lot more effective.
Thank you, Mark. I agree. I took the training and I liked it a lot more than SCM. So that's why this is going to be very important for everyone on our team to be trained and handle with care so that everyone knows what they're doing when it comes to using appropriate restraints if necessary. Now, of course, you don't want to put a restraint on an individual unless all other de-escalation strategies have not worked, or if they're going to seriously injure themselves or another person. But it's extremely important that everyone is trained, and if that's a situation that happens, that you know exactly how to use a restraint in the correct way, because if not, it's reportable. Any questions on that so far?
Yeah, and I think, really hitting the point of the restraint that we want to use it as a last resort measure to ensure the safety and well-being of our VIP and others. And all other de-escalation attempts should be made. I used to work in a group home in the early part of my career. We had an island in the kitchen. I would just circle the island. I would keep my distance from the VIP, and I would, at that time, the VIP may be following me, and I would keep my distance. We were all safe. No need to use a restraint. So any attempt that I can make, any move that I could do to keep my distance, ensuring the well-being of myself and others, no restraint is needed. And those are the strategies I want you guys to think about always as well, to only use this restraint as a last resort. It's restricting someone's rights. It could be embarrassing. It also could be reinforcing to the individual. So we want to just make sure that we only use this tool as a last resort. And anytime we use a restraint, we need to make sure we report it immediately when everything's calmed down. And also to remember, if we implement a restraint twice in a 6-month period, that requires immediate Human Rights Committee approval.
Yes. That's important to know. Thank you, Mike. Okay, any questions about this so far?
I just wanted to add, abuse is not only like a physical abuse, it can be also like mental abuse. If you are calling somebody names or you are talking down to that person, it's also mental abuse. It's also needed to be reported.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Diego. I do get a little bit farther down. We'll talk more about that, but thank you. That is important to know. Okay, so
The one other thing about restraints that I'm saying here is, we only use restraints that we're trained in. The other type of restraints that are outlawed at our agency are restraints like chemical restraints, like giving medications that might subdue the person, mechanical restraints like straps or other materials that might hold someone's arms down or something like that. They are not allowed to be used at our agency, and I believe at all agencies across Pennsylvania. So just to make sure we understand that we only use the restraint that we are trained in through Mark, through Handle with Care.
yes.
That's correct.
And in the meantime, and even after, while we get everybody cycled through the training, if you guys have any questions anytime, just reach out to me on Teams. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank
I
you,
have a
Mark.
question.
Yes.
So I know obviously we can't give any chemical restraints, but what about if like their caregiver or their family member does? Is that like because we're not the one doing it?
So you're speaking about like a PRN that might be given for a display of agitation. That's that's like a little bit different, I would say. And we shouldn't have anything to do with any medication administration. But if it's a PRN prescribed for a certain behavior, we could talk about that in supervision, but I really try to encourage families and doctors to steer clear of that practice, because those medications could have a reinforcing effect on these very extreme behaviors, causing the behaviors to happen more often in the future. I'd much rather the doctor prescribe these medications on a time-based schedule, where they're giving them like 8, 12, and 8 or something like that, and give a dose that is appropriate for those times, as a way to suppress those problem behaviors, but also as a way to prevent the reinforcement of problem behaviors. And I've seen that in my work at Reaching Beyond Limits, where an individual was engaging in challenging behaviors to seek psychotropic medications. It was a very serious problem that we had to talk to the doctor about and review with. And of course, the doctor has the final say. But we really want to encourage and use our data and our graphing to show the doctor what may be happening for giving medication immediately following a display of challenging behavior, a psychotropic medication.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to add before we move on? Okay. So next is physical. Kind of like Diego said, we're going to get into psychological and physical abuse as well. Physical, an act which causes or may cause physical injury to an individual, such as striking or hitting. Physical injuries may or may not be present with physical abuse. Allegations of physical abuse without obvious signs of injury must be reported. Monitoring or body checks may be necessary to look for signs of injury after an initial discovery of the incident. In addition, injuries attributed to a staff person or another individual receiving services that require treatment beyond first aid or an inpatient admission to a hospital are to be reported as abuse. If the incident involved an injury, common examples of situations. Okay, we don't need to go through all of these, but I think everyone kind of understands this. As far as bruises go, fractures go, dislocated joints, that is all reportable under physical abuse. This is also true if an individual, say they live in a group home and they come to day program and you see bruises all over them, that may be reportable. If somebody lives at home and you pick them up, and I can think of one example is that somebody went to pick a VIP up at one point in time, a staff member, and they witnessed the VIP's family member that they lived with screaming at them, yelling at them, attempting to hit them, attempting to throw things at them. The VIP came outside and mentioned other things happening as well. If you're put in a situation where you observe something like that, or your VIP is telling you something like that occurred, you do have to obviously let us know, and that is reportable as well. Psychological, an act which causes or may cause mental or emotional anguish by threat, intimidation, humiliation, isolation, or other verbal or nonverbal conduct to diminish another person. Examples include, but are not limited to, bullying, rejecting, degrading, terrorizing, disregard for privacy during personal care, a paid caregiver ignoring an individual, threats of isolation, yelling, name calling, shaming, mimicking, or mocking. Does anyone have any instances maybe that they have witnessed or that they have been a part of any type of possible abuse allegations in an incident that they want to talk about?
I can.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate you.
This was when I was working in like EI and gosh, probably like 15 years ago. But I was in a home. It was two twins and foster adoptive parents. And I saw, well, I didn't see it, but dad and kiddo were in the room, and then dad came out and said, so and so hit me, so I hit them back. And so I had to report that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that, Brittany. Yeah, sometimes, sometimes in our field, unfortunately, I feel like we see really sad things like this. And that's a really sad occurrence, especially with a child. And, especially with vulnerable populations, things like this happen. So it's super important that, us as mandated reporters and us that we are the biggest advocates for our VIPs, that we pay attention to these things, take them very seriously, and, report them, make sure that they're safe. Okay. Seclusion is another topic here, the involuntary confinement of an individual in an area from which the individual is prevented from leaving. This also goes against their rights too. They have a right to go where they please. So I think this is more like if they're locked in like a bedroom or they're unable to physically remove themselves from the situation. Behavioral health crisis event. an event or situation that exceeds the individual's current resources and coping mechanisms that causes the individual to experience extreme disorganization of thought, hopelessness, sadness, confusion, panic, or other emotional distress. The event includes actions by an individual that pose a danger to themselves or others and are unable to be mitigated without the assistance of law enforcement. And this just kind of goes through community-based crisis response, facility-based, immediate arrest or incarceration crisis response, psychiatric hospitalization, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. Does anyone have any questions about this section?
Just a general rule of thumb, if anytime police are involved, so we're going to make sure we make that report immediately to supervisory team here.
Yep.
Anytime a VIP goes into a hospital, psychiatric or medical, we're making a report. And if you scroll up a little bit, Grace, I just wanted to hit on one kind of unusual, keep going, please. Right there. And this is back to, is this the psychological abuse? Yes.
Yep.
So if we look here at the bottom, it says when an individual witnesses an incident for which they are not intended victim, but it causes or caused mental or emotional anguish. So, really specific thing. And that we just want to make sure aware of that, even though they weren't a direct participant with the incident, they were a witness to it, and it caused a mental emotional anguish that should be reported as well. So I think that's a pretty specific thing that we may not think about if something happens, at the day program to another VIP, that how it could be affecting another VIP that we're working with. The other one is too, this is important too with social media, taking, transmitting, or displaying an electronic image of an individual that's intended to shame, degrade, humiliate, or otherwise harm the personal dignity of the individual. And, I sometimes see this on social media posted by influencers online where they are, making fun of people with intellectual disabilities. And it's very unfortunate to see. So just some things to keep in mind when you're out in the field.
Good points to add. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on. All deaths are reportable. I'm not going to go through every single one in detail. And all deaths are reportable. That's the main line. Here we go. Exploitation. This one's a big one. An act or course of conduct by a person against an individual or an individual's resources without informed consent or with consent obtained through misrepresentation, coercion, or threats of force, which results in monetary, personal, or other benefit, gain, or profit for the target. This is a very long run-on sentence. Or monetary or personal loss to the individual. Exploitation should be reported regardless of the actual or perceived value of the loss. And this kind of just goes down a little bit more.
I was involved with the situation one time where one of the staff members was borrowing money from a VIP. And even though they received consent, they were borrowing money and with the promise to pay them back, which, obviously wasn't happening. So, we should never be involved in borrowing money or any kind of monetary benefit from our VIPs, and making sure that the people that are working with them aren't engaged in those behaviors as well.
Yeah, another one I can think of, which I don't know if the staff is on here, but there was a VIP that another staff member was working with that had a girlfriend that lived farther away or in like a different state. And this we realized that the VIP was sending the girlfriend money and gifts all the time. Now, normally, I know that sounds like, their boyfriend and girlfriend, but I don't know if the VIP has ever actually met this person in person. I think they're like internet boyfriend and girlfriend. And And that was concerning because this person kept asking our VIP for money often. And that's taking advantage of a vulnerable population, and that's considered financial exploitation, possibly. So we have to make a report for something like that. Does anyone have any other examples of this that they want to share before I go on? Okay. Failure to obtain informed consent. An intentional act or course of conduct by a person which results in the misuse of an individual's consent or failure to obtain consent. Examples include, but are not limited to, signing on behalf of or coercing, deceiving an individual into applying for credit cards, signing contracts, signing loan documents, wills, or other items that relate to the personal property, money, or identity of an individual. That's very important. And that's sad that somebody would even do that. Material resources, the illegal or improper act or process of a person using the material resources or possessions of an individual for his or her own personal benefit or gain. This includes, but is not limited to, misusing or stealing an individual's possession, soliciting gifts, coercing an individual to spend his or her funds for things he or she may not want or need, things for use by others, or the benefit of the household. Medical responsibility / resources, an act or course of conduct of a person that results in an individual paying for medical care or items that are normally covered by insurance or other means. This includes, but it's not limited to, requiring individual to pay for medical appointment, procedures, or equipment due to the failure of the ISP team to provide support or resources through their waiver. Requiring an individual to pay for an appointment, procedure, or equipment when there's a failure on the part of the service provider to support an individual to attend or schedule medical appointments. Missing or theft of medications. If someone is stealing your VIP's medications, that is reportable. Misuse, theft of funds. If somebody is stealing somebody's money, that is also reportable. And that could be someone in the home. Maybe they're stealing money. I can think of one example off the top of my head of something similar with this. We had a VIP who lived in a home with their family member, and the family member was controlling their funds, which they aren't supposed to be doing either. But they would control their funds and spend it on household items, groceries, without the consent of the individual, the VIP, and they would maybe give the VIP, I don't know, let's say $20 out of it to free spend for themselves. And they were just using the rest of their money. You can't do that. Did I miss one? No, I don't think so. Okay, room and board, requiring an individual to pay for items that are not covered as part of room and board charges, charging more than allowable rates for room and a board.
Then that's more for like group home things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we can skip that one. We don't need that. Unpaid labor. Okay, let's move on. Fire. Any situation that requires fire personnel or other safety personnel to extinguish a fire is reportable, whether it's with or without property damage. Law enforcement activity. This one's important. Law enforcement activity that occurs during the provision of service for service or for which an individual is the subject of a law enforcement investigation that may lead to criminal charges. Individual charged with the crime under police investigation. When an individual is formally charged with a crime by the police, or when an individual is informed he or she is suspected of committing a crime, the charges may be forthcoming. All charges or suspected charges related to a behavioral health crisis event should be reported.
And guys, I mean, this could be as simple as we're with our VIP in our car, getting pulled over. The police officer gives us a ticket, reportable incident. So you let us know, and unfortunately, we're sorry that happened, but it needs to be reported to us immediately. Don't let us find out on the back end that this happened, because I bet that VIP is going to be telling the story of that time they got pulled over with so and so in the car, and make sure you report that and be honest.
Do you guys have any questions so far? Okay.
No.
Thank you, Joanne. Missing person. If your VIP has gone missing, that is reportable. Neglect, this one's important, I think, to touch on. The failure to obtain or provide the needed services and supports defined as necessary or otherwise required by law, regulation, policy, or plan. This includes acts that are intentional or unintentional, regardless of the obvious occurrence of harm. So, failure to provide medication management, an event that may cause harm or lead to inappropriate medication use while the medication is in the control of the person charged with administering the medication. Incidents of this nature include when harm occurs to the individual, the medication error occurs over more than one consecutive administration, or we don't really have to worry about this very much because we don't administer medication, but for an individual that maybe has a nursing team, if you observe them inappropriately administering medication, that is reportable. Failure to provide needed care. The failure to obtain or provide the needed services and supports. This includes failure to implement medical, social, behavior, and restrictive procedures as outlined in an ISP. Failure to provide needed care such as food, clothing, personal hygiene, so on and so forth. Failure to obtain, keep in working order, or arrange for repair or replacement of equipment such as glasses, dentures, hearing aids, necessary and important things for the individual that they need for everyday daily life. Failure to intercede on behalf of the individual with regards to reporting or acting on changes to healthcare needs. Failure to provide needed supervision. This is important. The failure to provide attention and supervision, including leaving individuals unattended. This is based upon the supervision care needs in the ISP or recommendations or requirements from a court of law or as a condition of probation or parole. So if it says in the ISP that your individual has to have one-on-one supervision at least at all times, we cannot leave that person unattended. They have to be at least a one-on-one supervision, or else that is reportable. And that's not good. You can actually lose your job over that.
And guys, in the ISP and everyone's ISP, if you hit Control F and bring up the search bar and type in supervision, you will see a section labeled supervision. It's important that we know the supervision needs of each of the VIPs we work with to make sure that we are not breaking supervision. We need to step away and use the bathroom. It's important that someone else is there to supervise the individual. And say we're one-on-one with the individual and we have to use the bathroom, it's important we contact the supports coordination unit and schedule a time to discuss possible solutions, like making amendments to the supervision need or adding additional services to the team in order to make sure that supervision needs are intact.
Agreed. Any questions about that?
The
Okay.
stakeholders would count as people in that supervision requirement, right?
Like if you are out in like the community with that person and like a family member, do you mean?
Yeah, or in the home. So like if there's a 2-on-1 and it's you and a parent, that would count as a 2-on-1, right?
Yeah.
And it'll outline, Tyler, each location. It'll say like home, this is what the expectations are at home. These are what the expectations are in the community. So the ISP is very detailed in describing exactly what ratio is needed in each setting. So just be aware of that as well.
And there's some people that you service that might not have that type of like might not have a specific outline supervision. Like one person I can think of is Tom R. He's somebody who's very independent. Not to say to leave them alone for long periods of time. I don't want you to confuse me with that. But what I'm saying is it's not as crucial as someone like another individual who really needs to make sure that they don't have the safety awareness skills. They don't have the independence or ability to be left alone. So that's important. Okay, failure to provide protection from hazards, the failure to protect an individual from health and safety hazards. I'm going to just continue because I don't want to run out of time. Moving violation. Okay, passive neglect. Inability to provide supports due to environmental factors, inability to provide medical or personal care, inability to provide necessities. So I think this is important too, that neglect is a big one, not just for people, I mean, obviously for people living in a group home and people living with their families, but people can also be, a reportable incident is also for self-neglect. Maybe, you know, an individual is not taking care of themselves in their home in the way that they should be, to the point where maybe their home can be condemned, and this person is not hygienically taking care of themselves in their home. That is actually considered self-neglect, and it has happened before. Rights violation. This one's very important. I want to touch on this one. An authorized act which improperly restricts or denies the human or civil rights of an individual, including those rights which are specifically mandated under applicable law, regulation, policy, or plan. This includes acts that are intentional or unintentional, regardless of the obvious occurrence. Civil/legal, and a violation of civil or legal rights afforded by law. This includes the right to vote, excuse me, the right to vote, speak freely, practice religious choice, access law enforcement and legal services, as well as participate in local, state, or national government activities. Communication, the failure to support an individual to communicate at all times. This includes a failure to obtain needed communication evaluations, assistive devices, or services, provide communication support, or maintain communication devices in working order. Communication includes, but is not limited to, display of, okay, we're not going to go through all of that. But basically, this means, you know, if somebody has an iPad that's not working and it's their main form of communication, that's why it's very important to let the supports coordinator know so they can get that funded through their waiver. Because technically, if they don't have that, it's considered a rights violation. Health. The failure to support choice and appoint opportunity related to healthcare. This includes failure to inform and educate an individual about physical or behavioral health evaluations and assessments, changes in health status, so on and so forth. Privacy, any violation of an individual's safely exercised choice to be free from being observed or disturbed by others. This includes an individual's choice to maintain the privacy of his or her physical person, living areas, possessions, so on and so forth. That is why this is so important to get a restrictive procedure plan for privacy modification. Because technically, if you don't have that, and you need to assist someone in the bathroom and you don't have that privacy modification, when it comes to providing and teaching, like maybe teaching them how to wipe, that is considered a rights violation under privacy. Another important thing on here with privacy is the use of images or likeness without the expressive permission of the individual. This kind of goes hand in hand with the social media part that we talked about earlier. You cannot post pictures of an individual without their consent on social media or anywhere else. That's also breaking their right of privacy. Services, any violation of an individual's right to control services received. So this just, and we talk about this in our consent forms. When we were first starting services with an individual, it does talk about this. They have the right to choose their own provider and choose their own services. So that's kind of what that really means. An authorized restricted procedure, we talked about that already. Self-neglect, I already talked about. This includes environmental, medical, personal care, and other. Serious illness, chronic reoccurring illness, or new illnesses that requires hospitalization. That would be when something is reportable, and that kind of goes under, medical care and hospitalization. Serious injury, we talked about that a little bit. Choking, injury accidental, injury self-inflicted, injury unexplained, medical equipment failure, pressure injury. Sexual abuse is important if there's an individual that you have that is suspected to be sexually abused by their caretakers. That is extremely important. It needs to be reported. Rape, sexual harassment, unwanted sexual contact. So this could be, we were working with a VIP at one point in time who attended a day program, and unfortunately another VIP that was at that same day program sexually harassed and sexually assaulted this individual. And that needed to be reported. Unfortunately, things like that happen sometimes. And it needs to be reported. Site closure, we don't really, I think this more so is with group homes too.
Yes, and if we close, the day program, it might affect our sister company. So if they close the location due to an emergency, a natural disaster, they would make that report and let them know the facility's closed. But it doesn't really apply to us.
Nope. Suicide attempt. I think this kind of just continues on. I think we could stop here because this part's my part. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to go back to the last slide that I had here before we end.
No questions here.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you guys see this?
Mm.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So Central Reach incident form. If you didn't know, we do have our incident reports right on Central Reach. You would go to the individual's contact, you would search their name, go under notes and forms, similar to if you were going to complete their behavior support plan or, look up their behavior support plan. You can click on add new, and then you would type in incident report and it should come right up. Make sure when you're putting in an incident report, you put it under the VIP's contact, under their profile. Do not put it under your own profile. And then it's just it's pretty straightforward. It just asks you to complete the information for each question. It's important for this that you include times and dates as closely as you can when the boxes show up. So if you say you needed to contact a supports coordinator informing them of an incident, it's important for you to make sure that you put the time and date that occurred. Does everyone feel comfortable finding the incident form on Central Reach? And if not, if you're unsure, if something does happen and we ask you to fill out an incident form and you don't know, let us know and we will call you and share our screen and show you. We will help you fill it out. Okay, in conclusion, it's crucial to recognize when the reportable incident has occurred. If you are unsure, please reach out to leadership as soon as possible, immediately, for assistance. It's an important duty as clinicians to ensure the safety and well-being of our VIPs. Do you guys have any questions? I know that was a lot of information. but it's extremely important. And
This could
also,
be a little
go
bit of
ahead.
a complicated question, but like or require kind of a complicated answer. But the rights of an individual, are they, uh, do they vary based on their ability and the role of a caretaker or a guardian?
No. I think the only thing I can think of this that would change is maybe their ability to, like sign their own consent forms. If they are appointed a legal guardian, the legal guardian can make decisions of that nature and sign consent forms. But if someone is their own guardian, then no. And everyone has, as adults, everyone, no matter what they're able to understand or not, their functionality has rights. Any other questions? Did that answer your question, Tyler? I know that was kind of like a brief answer.
Yeah.
I would need to know
So
like
it doesn't alter their rights in any way, Tyler. But like Grace said, if someone's the guardian, then they can make decisions based on behalf of the VIP. So they're able to give informed consent. They're able to make decisions on behalf of the VIP. And there's different forms of guardianship, power of attorney, things like that. The paperwork should be filed with the support coordination unit, and they'd be able to answer those specific questions for you. A lot of times with our care is restricted procedure plans. If the guardians, if there is a guardian, we of course want to review the paper with all stakeholders, but we want to make sure that we have the signature of the guardian as well as they are signing on behalf of the individual. Sometimes
That
what I've seen too is that individuals that are lower abled, if they need a medical procedure, sometimes the doctors will be unwilling to do the procedure because they're concerned that the person's unable to give informed consent, even though they're their own guardian. So sometimes you want to encourage families in those kind of situations to get some kind of power of attorney. So in case an emergency happened requiring like emergency surgery, that the caregiver, can give that informed consent. And if there isn't a parent or caregiver, the state will authorize someone at an agency to be their guardian as well. And we have a few VIPs on our caseload that have that kind of state appointed guardian for those kind of situations.
Yeah, and I think something that's important to note too is just because somebody else is a legal guardian, I mean, they still have to follow these rules too.
Right. They can't just violate the rights of our VIPs because they're the guardian.
Right. And if they do, that's reportable. I hope that was helpful. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you guys for listening. It's super important stuff. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a good day.